In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, and by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, 'Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage.' When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had been seeing at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, the perfect gifts for him or for her. A young family decided to take a Christmas vacation down south. And they went to this charming southern city. And they parked their car and they went down the sidewalks down their downtown. And it was quite lovely. And as they were walking by this church at Christmas time, they saw this nativity out front. And they said, "Well, that's quite lovely, but also quite interesting, because the three wise men were dressed as firemen. They had red hats right there on their head." And they looked at it and they were perplexed by all this until they saw a local walking by. And they asked him, "Excuse me, sir, but why are the wise men dressed as firemen?" And he looked them up and down. He said in his lovely southern voice, "Y'all ain't from around here, are ya?" And they said, "Well, no, sir, we're not. We're just traveling through. But we were interested about your wise men, your nativity set, and why they were dressed that way." And he said, "You ever read the Bible, son?" And the father was taken aback and said, "Well, yeah, I read it." He said, "Well, it says it right there in the Bible. It says those wise men traveled from afar." I know, right. I'm from the South. I can say a joke about my heritage here. How far are we willing to go? How far are we willing to travel of what we're giving to our Lord? What are we offering him? Is it gold? Is it frankincense? Is it myrrh? I think we can make an argument that in the Bible there are lots of wonderful stories about the importance of family development, of a mother and a father needing to be supported at the beginning of when they're having children. They need community and they need gifts. A baby shower. I think that the story of the three wise men coming to the scene of the Messiah is probably the most popular baby shower story recorded. Now, baby showers are typically before the baby is born, right? Mary and Joseph didn't really have that opportunity, did they? But here we go, sometime afterwards, we see them being showered with three gifts from three wise men who came from afar. Might not have been a fire, not have been smoke, but there was light. And it was from a star that they were following to discover who this person would be to save the world. Save it from what? Save it from who? Well, the story is a worthy one of sharing. Before I get into what gifts we bring to God this day. The three wise men are three men to which we really can't say with any great assertion that they arrived precisely on the 13th day after Jesus was born. The church has created this cycle, this season, of from the moment of birth on that eve of the 24th and 12 days later, and the cycle to which we now find the Epiphany, which is what we call today's transferred feast, the moment to where something really important is happening. But the wise men could have taken 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years to have arrived to see Jesus as a baby, an infant, a toddler. I know that it looks really nice and tight, and we love the scene. You have to look over here above the preview, but they're there. Those three wise men finally made it. Did they arrive at a manger? Did they arrive in Nazareth, in Bethlehem, as we see in the story? We don't, as scholars, know precisely. But that's not the important factor here. The important thing is that God called people to come and to pay him homage. Homage is honoring someone for what and who they are. There were three wise men from Persia, Turkey, and Iran. I'm using our own cultural national identities. Back in those days, they would have been known to come from Asia Minor, and they would have come from Persia. That's the language that they would have used in those days. And what's interesting is that they could have been related to Judaism, but it is probably, from what we're seeing, they came from a religion called Zoroastrianism. It's a Middle Eastern form of religion. And it's an important one because if you came to my teaching on the heresies of the church, I would have presented that as one of the heresies because they said that there is a God of good and there is a God of evil. And there is this deism of good versus evil in the world. Well, we believe in that, right? Of good and evil, but we don't believe there's two gods. We believe in a monotheistic understanding of one God. Furthermore, that particular ancient religion pluralized theology and said that there are so many people in the world, we all have our identification of who God is, and therefore we can all see it through our eyes and belong to the same God. And we know that's not true as Christians. As Christians, we believe that there's only one way to know the one God, and that is through his son Jesus, or else we're here for not a good reason. The reason for this time of the year is to have an epiphany of that being, of that knowledge, of that understanding of why we give our gifts. And there's no coincidence that this time of the year plays perfectly into the hands of any church going through its parochial cycle of asking for its members to offer gifts. We had a wonderful pledge campaign. I commend Bob Thacker and the entire committee for stewardship. Did a great job asking you to give gifts. But why? Why? Is it just to keep the lights on? To keep the roof intact? Payroll? Insurance? Is that the reason why we ask for you to bring gifts? Or do we ask because we know that there is a journey ahead to where this church needs help? Help to do what? To bring light into the world. So I started off the sermon with what? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, the perfect gifts for him or for her. The him is the groom. The him is Jesus the Christ. We bring our gifts of time, talent, and treasure to Jesus so that it will be manifested, his grace in us to help the world. And embodied within the church, this is the her. She is able to proceed into the world and bring this message of deliverance, of hope, and of salvation. What does epiphany mean? Epiphany means something that is manifested. What does manifested mean? Manifested means taking something that's really abstract and embodying it into something very simple. Well, God is pretty abstract, but Jesus is really simple. That's why he came in the form of a baby. And when you see a baby, you want to give, because you want that child to have everything offered to it so that it can make an impact in the world that is ahead. The persecutions come to her, and the persecutions come to him. Christ the groom, the church is the bride. We see the importance of sending the Holy Family with gifts. Every church, especially in Florida, sees this abundance of gift giving around Christmas and the early part of January. And then, speaking on behalf of every vestry, finance committee, endowment committee, and anybody that works with such, we see that we get to October and wonder, how will we pursue forward? But it's much more than the operational impact of just the building and how we do what we do. It's why we do it. We heard an excellent sermon yesterday from our bishop, who is now in the seat to lead us for another generation. And he said we always have the same questions. We always wonder, what is the plan? Who's going to do it? How are we going to pay for it? But do we ever ask why? The embodiment of God's message in Jesus compels us to ask why. Are you willing to go afar? Are you willing to give your gifts? I hope so, because God is continually giving you his. All those good gifts found in his body and his blood, all those gifts that are found through community of worshiping believers together with one another as one body, through healing, through comfort, through hope. We cherish these things because that gives us life, and it packs us for the journey ahead. God's giving you gifts because he wants to, because he really does love you. Can we be the same, giving him our gifts? Why? Because we love him as well. What are you willing to bring? I thought about this for a while. What is our modern day equivalency to gold, frankincense, and myrrh? When you look at it in today's times, if you were to send a special sweet family to make a long journey, which Mary and Joseph had to do with Jesus, they had to fly out and go to Egypt to escape Herod, because Herod was going to kill this child. They sent them with finances so they can pay for food and transportation. What's that today? Abundance of Publix gift cards or Wallet gift cards. Pack them up for a year or two ahead so they got gas in their car and food so they can survive. And what is that frankincense? Well, maybe with a baby you need as much Lysol and air freshener as you can to keep it real when you're close together. And what about myrrh, that analgesic that helps healing and power? Maybe that was just a whole case of Tylenol. I don't know. But what are we willing to give? Is it in those forms? And possibly there's something more, which is our time and our talent and our treasure. Our gold, our frankincense, and our myrrh. These are the perfect gifts for Christ Jesus, the him, and for the church, who is the her. In the name of the Father, and the Son,